Everyone's chasing AI tools. He says tools give you overhead, not momentum. What you need is architecture.
What you need is what I call architecture. You need an infrastructure. We are surrounded, but not supported.
Mario is a principal AI solution architect who built healthcare automation that cut patient intake from days to under 24 hours.
We were able to cut down the intake process of people going through emergency to less than 24 hours. That made my day. Even up to, the day I die, that's the stuff that I'm going to remember and say, hey, I actually built something or I published something that really saved lives.
But here's what stopped me cold. He said content generation is now a commodity. The only thing that matters is implicit knowledge, the kind that lives at the intersection of rare domains and lived experience.
The main thing that I'm seeing right now is the subject matter expertise, domain knowledge.
And he proved it. He posted one specific take on LLM evaluations, connected with the right person, and turned that into a real collaboration within days. That shift from creating content to mining knowledge is exactly what ContentStash helps creators operationalize.
You're gonna have two audiences. One is agents. Most of the content will be evaluated by agents. Very similar to how resumes are being reviewed now.
This is The Stash with Mario Lazo. Bring us back a little bit to the kind of content that you produce and what is it that you do in general nowadays?
Yeah, so let me start first. For me, number one, writing is thinking. Creating content is a way for me to understand and abstract the world as it is, and allow me to immerse and relate and connect things through, and apply whatever domain expertise I have. So my current role, I'm uh, principal solution architect for data and AI. Fancy title, right? And there's with that title, there's a shit ton of expectations that I have to meet both internally and externally, right? And the thing is, writing gives me a safe zone by which I can be myself, define my tone and experience, tackle a unique problem that's interesting for me, and basically convey that knowledge that basically allows me to scale. Right? If I write something, build that content. Just to give you an idea, I posted something about the difference between models, AI models, and momentum. Right now, people are transfixed on AI models, model here, and all the agents and all that stuff. But really, there's no momentum because we keep on starting from day one, and
Because
we're
the space is advancing so quickly and because one Claude update ends up disrupting the entire space, is that why people are starting from day one, or is it because of a
yeah.
different reason?
Well, it's the latest shiny object syndrome, right? I'm gonna look for, oh shit, I'm gonna be left behind. And the big question I have is, are you on the tool set mindset? Oh, I have another sexy tool. How is it gonna go like this? Oh, I can create this crazy technique that can copy and paste and have Claude do X, Y, and Z. Um, so there's a shit ton of tools, but tools gives you more overhead. Tool gives you a lot more investment. What you need is what I call architecture, right? You need an infrastructure. We are surrounded, but not supported. There's a big difference, right? So when you think about content creation and all that stuff and knowledge, there's a ton of information that's out there. But the big fundamental question is, are you just surrounding yourself with pockets of information or building content? Or are you being supported towards a certain goal or objective or value prop that you're trying to do? Right? So a good example is there's AI for automating work. There's AI for solving cancer. There's AI for identifying key identifiers for poverty, stagnation of education, knowledge gaps. There's a shit ton of opportunities for AI to be applied with an intrinsic value for better, crazy domain problems that, devastate the world. And the big question is, are you on the what I call model mindset, Or are you in the momentum mindset wherein you're building expertise from one layer to the other and you're headed towards something that you're building along, right? So think about this way. The momentum mindset is I have a tech stack, I have a solution set. I'm going to determine whether this fits my objective, yes or no. We're not saying don't use the models, but there has to be some sort of framework and understanding by which you fit all those things within a context towards a certain objective. Otherwise, you're just doing busy work. You're not moving the needle because you're starting again from scratch.
And for that, you have to have a solid thesis that you believe will not get disturbed by a competitor.
Yeah, and frankly, we can't predict the future. I mean, there might be a competitor here and there. Um, to I've been meeting different customers, and one of the things I've realized, just to give you an idea, people are in the mode of doing demoware and saying AI is like this. And the number one feedback I get is that they demo so fast that they don't even understand what the customer wants and needs in the first place. Right? There's the oh, AI can do this. And I call that AI as a toy. It's a sexy toy. It's a very smart toy, but it's not useful because you haven't understood the problem domain in the first place. And most often than not, elimination of something is actually better than applying AI. Sometimes it's a people problem, it's a delegation problem. Sometimes it's a process problem. You're doing too much. Or sometimes you just need to power through. Because guess what? These are difficult problems. It just takes time to actually get your act together and just need to persevere, you know?
Absolutely. And before I ask more questions and dive deeper into the world of content and AI, with the three main substacks that you have, the first one being data learning science, second one, Mario's handy notes, and third one, transform vision. Mind sharing a little bit about each of these three and what
Yeah,
made
so
you start them?
so number one, the like I said, I want to frame everything in the sense that my main writing is thinking. Number two, the mindset is to learn it all, not to know it all. Satya Nadella coined that for phrase for like a decade ago, where he transformed the thinking of Microsoft to be more learning oriented instead of doing perf wars. And for me, content is just a side effect of that learning and just being open to make mistakes. So
Mhm.
the three Substacks is one is a private one that I don't share. So if you look through it, there's nothing there. And that's by design because I need my space to write stuff and curate knowledge and all that. The other one is more collaboration oriented. Again, it's not public. You're not going to see it. It's with other people from co-authors, experts in the field. We kind of put things together, whether it's strategic or tactical or just a certain moment in time, doesn't really matter, but at least put our thoughts together. Then there's a more public one, which is data learning science, which I'm thinking of updating as well, because data science is somewhat inundated term. It's not resonant for a certain audience, because sometimes it's too technical. So those are the three domains. Then secondly, the other thing I'm doing is I'm pivoting towards GitHub as well and correlating Substack with GitHub to have a bigger network effect because I'm realizing a lot more of my audience and the people I work with demand code or access to code or demand working applications and whatnot more than just like what's there. Um, the the main gist of it is that those are just like what I call modes of learning and different. areas of collaboration with specific people, whether it's just me or other people and in public in general, to allow me to go from one learning to another learning.
So primarily, the content that you do is blogging, and with these blogs, what is the goal? Is it to disseminate information on the different softwares? Is it to capture your observations? Who's your target audience, and what is it that you typically write about?
So my primary audience is my tribes. So it's the data and AI community. So it's the people 10 years ago, hardcore data geeks who go on these conventions for data and AI. I'm part of the community. I'm a community leader. And just to give you an idea um, of my cycle, because people talk about what is your daily routine, and I think they're thinking it too limited. I
Mhm.
think of it in seasons. So every year there's a conference in Austin. It's called Data Day Texas. It's a one to 2 day thing wherein you connect with the leaders on all the things related to AI. So I joined that as I try to immerse and write things down, thoughts. So that's kind of like where initially early in the year I have ideas and things I want to discuss. Uh, in in uh, in summer June, there's the Toronto Machine Learning Summit, and that's an AI community in Toronto that I curate talks. So I'm a part of the steering committee wherein we review talks that were submitted by people. And as an offshoot, I get exposure to all the crazy stuff that's happening way earlier before it was full available in the marketplace. Then last but not the least, there's one in Austin. It's the Gen AI World in October, and where I also curate the talks. So those are primary what I call knowledge bases or contact points where I can harvest the knowledge and expertise. And as a byproduct, I just use Substack as a way to communicate those things to people who follow me or people I'm working with,
Mhm.
as kind of like a synchronous way of collaboration and learning.
Do you find it to be the best way to communicate with your type of niche and your type of audience and as we call it in the sales world, ideal customer profile or viewer? Do they prefer kind of written content versus something more visual or like a video or something that is along the lines of a live stream? Do you find that written content tends to outperform the rest and that's why you chose it? Or is it because you prefer content personally because that is how you enjoy putting content out there?
Um, so what happened, just to give an idea, some of the authors that I follow naturally write stuff, right? And way back then, there was, blogging. I blogged way before when it was, still there, new. Then I looked into Medium, and I just find the paywall to be very annoying. And Substack was just very convenient and a lot more open, you know. And over time, I just found most of the people that I look up to are either on Substack or Medium, where they post their expertise and knowledge. So think of it as a platform to convey your voice, your opinion, your understanding. And to answer your question, it's the degree of interaction that I get and the reading that I get as well. So I get my information from people I follow there, and we collaborate and we connect and we chat. Whether by sometimes it goes to LinkedIn, sometimes it goes to some other domain, and most of the value that I get is in the offline conversations that are not seen directly through Substack. So think of it as an organic way to grow out certain level of topics you want to discuss and you're passionate about. then it opens up certain opportunities, whether by partnership or collaboration or even just a call to further that area of knowledge or expertise.
And then how do you usually go about producing that type of content when it comes to the writing? Do you have a specific ritual? Do you sit down once a week and hammer out that weekly post? Do you use AI for brainstorming? Do you use uh, some sort of access into your previous calls to gather those gold nuggets? What is your process for creating that written content on your Substack?
So it is honestly it has evolved. So number one, way back then, I kind of did this experiment on LinkedIn and Substack wherein you spray and pray. And I was able to accelerate my LinkedIn growth because part of it is I need to measure signal versus the noise and what people resonate with. And part of it is understanding how LinkedIn works in conjunction with Substack. So the old, not really, the past couple of years, the way I do it is just build content and do it kind of like a little bit blindly. Now I'm a little bit more strategic. So my workflow right now is I use voice recorder where I can record calls or talks or conversation on the fly. And it's AI enabled, and I could like curate it and chat with it and whatnot and transcribe stuff. Then then usually what happens is I get involved into some discussions with experts and whatnot. Then with their permission, I record. And secondly, I have some sort of indexing mechanism where I curate all the knowledge that I know. So let's say for Google Docs, there's certain topics that I or problem sets I want to curate and understand. So part of the process is I built an agent that does research. So there's an agent that I do for academic research, let's say on LLM evals or certain topics, and it's only verifying peer-reviewed papers. Then I have a feed that goes in using you can use Perplexity or whatever tool or operator to just give you a ping on news feeds and all that other stuff. But I find it too noisy, to be honest. Then the third thing I do is I have an army of different agents that I use for research, for curating talks, for annotating things, and even positioning things. So think of it as creating a digital version of myself in different functions. And over time, since I'm a solution architect, I've evolved them from being very what I call knowledge harvesting to more in-depth research or understanding where I can build a knowledge base. Then I even created an agent that copied my voice and my tones and all the stuff that I write. So I did an analysis. Remember, I used Claude to just analyze all my writing. And I even created templates on how best to communicate those things as well. So whether I want to do quote unquote a proposal voice or how do I want to position it, let's say on LinkedIn. So for example, LinkedIn is kind of tricky. There are different templates that you can apply. There's the compelling story. There's the bulleted form. There's an X and Y thing. There are different things that you can employ. And what I've done is over time, I created all those things and kind of created templates. And I've matured them in a sense that they used to be like just prompt templates to actual semi-autonomous quote unquote versions of myself as agents.
And then would they pump out different styles of content and then you select one and post it across LinkedIn and Substack? Or how would you even keep track of all the different agents? And I ask because I'm running into a similar issue with the Claude bot that I'm creating. There's a bunch of different prompts and a bunch of information kind of going into it, but it seems scattered and all over the place when I try to update the memory. And I think it's a struggle that a lot of people have just organizing all that information.
Yeah, so yeah, part of it is just I have to apply what I learned. So number one is context engineering. When you think about it, there's a limited context window for any AI, LLM that you do. So part of it is kind of curating that knowledge, and I store them as markup language. And what I do is, if I use an agent, I preload it with that knowledge and information. So, for example, I'm doing right now LLM evaluation. So what I do is I have an agent that I created. All that it did was do all the research, all summarize all that, index all the peer-reviewed articles and the insights, and store them as I just store them as markup language. Then I feed that knowledge and embed that in Claude and say, Claude, this is the primary reference that you're gonna have as part of this quote unquote process that we want to do to talk about this specific domain. Secondly, I chunk it down because what happens usually is when you do Claude, you wanna this temptation to have to give it more tokens because Claude by design they want you to pay more, right? They want you. It's very chatty. Claude is very chatty by design. The reason is they want to tell you how much it knows. Oh my God, this is very smart. It already figured out what I want. But what it really is doing is giving you, think about it from an anthropic perspective. They want you to subscribe. They want you to purchase more stuff. And so what they're doing is they're harvesting already information that they have, and it increases the surface area of luck on the content that you want. And the human temptation is I'm just gonna give you more spice, but it's gonna cost you compute. So I've gone that route and burned through a ton of things, but I realized, wait a minute, I'm just paying tax. And most of this information I need to know anyways because I that's my area of expertise. So what I've done is take the slower effort of going through the process of curating the knowledge and putting in my own opinions and topics and personal experiences so that it's a blended content that includes me as part of the mix, right? And therefore, when I create content, it's not just so much, it's very refined and it really follows my line of thinking, how I think and say. And it's in the curation and editing portion that I've learned to resonate with most people. So to give you an idea, I posted something on LLM evaluation, and I was saying that I had this deal with a customer, and it's a composite story. And I mentioned that customers now want fast. They want everything to be fast, blah blah blah. It resonated with someone on LinkedIn, and I connected with a dude. Now we're talking and we're collaborating. You know, so the way I've actually learned how to do things is when I post on LinkedIn, I have a very specific target to do and say, I have a problem. I'm looking for people who are actually looking into the same domain that I can pick their brain and make my job a lot easier. You know what I mean? It's a very different. So I create that content with the intent that, hey, here's a problem. If you're resonating, hey man, like let's connect. That was my main intent. It's not to showcase I know, it's not to, add more likes or whatever. It's to actually be intentional and say, this is the goal I want to achieve for this post. And guess what? It actually resonated with key people. And the weird part about it is once somebody posts into it, I get pings all the time now. It's like, oh, you're talking about the same thing. Oh, you're talking about the same thing. And sometimes intentionally, there's a post on the topic. I find an expert. There's already an existing thread. And what I do is repurpose the content and share my own experiences and say, hey, I'm already thinking about the same thing. Here's kind of like my findings.
Mhm.
So I cross-populate that existing thread where there's a ton of attention and it allows people to go back to me take a look at my LinkedIn or my Substack and therefore interact in a deeper way.
Mhm.
So,
So
so
one,
I'm a little bit more strategic, more about it on the internet part.
and it sounds like number one, the call to action of who relates with this issue and just starting conversation around that is very successful. Number two, going into popular threads where there's already good conversation happening and directing that audience towards whatever it is that you have to say. And then as a result, them checking out your profile. Both of these strategies have been very successful in terms of growing your audience in Substack. Is that a correct way to summarize it?
Well, it's not just Substack, it's also LinkedIn, you know.
Mhm.
So the way I kind of look at it now is I view Substack as just one of the channels. Then now I get roped into certain things. So the last thing I had was I'm teaching a course on XYZ coding agents. Um, for whatever reason, just to give you an idea, there's another guy who's teaching also on AI ethics, regulatory practices, and I'm doing research on that as well. I'm targeting that piece, and he pinged me and say, "Hey, we're thinking about the same lines. Why don't you teach?" And I told him, like, "Dude, more than happy to do that, but you need to teach my class too, right?" And when you think about it, um, it's what I call compounding knowledge, because ultimately, what we're thinking is, "Hey, well, let's publish something, but it's going to be a joint effort, and we'll give everybody credit." And I think it's profoundly more effective than just like trying to broadcast, like draw a fishing line instead of drawing a specific net with a wider reach.
And what's been the most challenging in terms of content production in the current workflow that you have? Has it been something around the agents or some other portion that's been the most time consuming?
Honestly, number one, it's greed.
It's what?
Human greed, right? So there's this temptation to look at other people's work, and I'm like, oh my god, I want to create this evaluation of like. So number one, it's so easy to compare yourself with other people and say this content guy is posting on blah blah blah. So there was this guy who posted stuff on here's the tools I use. Pum 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 pum. Here's my ranking and all that stuff. And so number one is it's I don't know what you call it, pride, greed, or some sort of personal validation. It is letting go of the ego, focusing on what is the real purpose and what I want to do, and
Mhm.
not get derailed. Then number two, it's just time and attention, right? It's very difficult to curate knowledge and understand things. There's always this temptation on, oh shit, I'm just going to use AI to summarize this thing and just read the cliff notes. But really to spend time to be, but the problem there is you cheat yourself, right? The thing that I realize is I keep on going back to the same areas. And because I didn't master it, it's like going to Coursera and just clicking on everything and using AI to answer all the questions so that you can get certification.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? So you can still get away with quote unquote bloody murder, or I'm certified or I know this thing, right? It's similar. But in all honesty, when push comes to shove, when the customer asks you, you look like a deer in headlights and you're nervous because you kind of faked your way there.
Yep.
So, and in all honesty, personally, I've become very miserable because you have imposter syndrome. Personally, I feel very guilty and I feel very unhappy, and I'm just copying pasting stuff for without any joy behind it. So I've learned to a point wherein I'm not I'm not using AI to just broadcast stuff. I'm learning how to calm my appetite for attention and actually have a disciplined view on it. And what I'm discovering is the more that I curate and build stuff by myself, not like the slow cook, and index it properly and put my stories and annotation behind it, then I give it to AI. My content is 10 times better because it's me.
Hmm.
And I could, like, in my head, I'm able to connect the dots.
Hmm.
And one of the things I've learned, and this might be a good prompt, is to ask ChatGPT or Claude to interview you, interview me about a specific topic instead of having it tell me, give out the content, but do a reverse engineering and say, hey, I'm creating this content. Let's say I want to do LLM evaluations. Can you please interview me? Ask me this question so that I may surface the things that are in my head so that I'll have clarity and direction on something that's really unique
Hmm.
and not AI generated.
And one way we're solving that problem with ContentStash is essentially integrating into something like Fathom. For example, we have a Fathom note taker in this call, and having access to all the transcripts, all the meeting notes, all the stand-ups in the engineering team, all the stand-ups that we have on the sales and marketing side. And essentially it mines those calls for data and gold nuggets that were shared within the team that you can then turn into organic content because it essentially came from you or someone on the team that you can now share with the world and repurpose it into different forms, whether it's now a standalone video or it's a written LinkedIn post or a newsletter or something completely different. And
Yeah,
so you don't even need to get interviewed by something like Claude with something like this because your note taker has already recorded you saying these things. So it essentially
yeah,
saves you the
definitely. And
time on having to regurgitate.
yeah, completely. That would be a game changer. Like, I think part of it is how do you set up a platform wherein it's challenging you and it's providing you kind of like, um it's not like blind obedience. It's actually providing you areas wherein there's risk, there's conflict, areas wherein you need to pay attention, areas wherein I'm completely ignoring X and there's an underlying intent or behavior or certain areas that you need to understand. The other thing about it using AI is the tone, right? If you have the ability to discern where somebody's pissed off or sarcastic or happy or just like plain BSing you, right? I think would be a game changer because nowadays we're all inundated with, death scroll, with all the media and whatnot, and it's very difficult to be human again in so many ways. So I think that would be awesome.
And speaking of being human, I think something that you touched on that really caught my attention was uh, pointing out right before we hit record was pointing out the AI slop that's happening out there. In a world where so much can just be generated with AI, how do you see the game of content progressing? Do you see diminishing returns on something like content production moving forward because the space is just so oversaturated and filled with AI slop and no original thought? How do you see the content game changing?
Yep. So number one, let's look into the facts. So if you look at the data now, there's literally 3 to 4 million books being created a year. Those are books. I'm telling you, those aren't even like stuff on Substack or other platforms, right? And so it's already happening now. And um, the way I would frame it is we need to understand where things are headed from a content perspective. In my view, in the next few years, you're gonna have two audiences. One is agents. So most of the content will be evaluated by agents, very similar to how resumes are being reviewed now, right? If you look at resumes, if you look at the current economic environment, people are applying like crazy. They're not hitting anywhere because guess what? There's AI that's just funneling it out, and it's already happening in a real sense. So if you think about your audience, there's going to be agents, then they're going to have real humans looking at things. So from that perspective, you need to have a two-pronged strategy to determine what I call the hierarchy of content to distinguish between signal versus noise. So in my world where it's data and AI, the highest level is basically anything that's peer reviewed and published,
Mhm.
right? If you are a scholar, the ground quote unquote litmus test is, hey, did you actually, are you, as part of the quote unquote hierarchy of trust, people always look at the papers you publish, right? Are you like just copying, pasting bullshit?
Mhm.
Or did you actually have something that's peer reviewed, whether IEEE or any, PhD level, blah, blah, blah? That's kind of like the litmus standard. The other thing is, what are the hyperscalers, the big guys, AWS, GCP, and all that other stuff? What are they saying? What signal do they have? And they have proof points primarily because they come from a base of they have a ton of people using their platforms, right? They're able to leverage AI internally, and basically they're sharing kind of like expertise. Part of that is the AI community. You're thinking about presentations publicly, both through events, videos, and all that other stuff. Right? It's now freely available through podcasts or different source of material. Then down the road, you have the stupid ass marketing fluff from all the marketing people, and nothing bad. It's part of the job, but I'm already seeing kind of like the tiers of all those things, and leaders at the executive level, they're so high up that they need other people to tell them what's good and bad. They themselves don't have the time to validate, right? If you want to move up the level, you need to kind of build that expertise over time. And basically from that perspective, what I'm trying to say is you need to pivot your content strategy, right? And all that stuff. That's why this year I intentionally pivoted towards teaching and having a strong academic kind of like experience, because the what I'm seeing now is that because of the proliferation, when information arbitrage is zero, right? What would be the primary reference for your audience? What would be number one, right? And that gives you an idea how to convey your content and messaging and who the people you're going to work with to generate and collaborate on that content. I'm just so lucky that academic world is very um, collaborative. But then again, it takes a lot of time to nurture those relationships, then kind of anchor that into something like a real paper. And that effort, though, compounds over time. So it's not like marketing stuff. It's really more of a strategy, how to level up. And as you go up, you're able to connect with people where they're at.
And it sounds like a lot of emphasis is around the strategy piece and more quality versus quantity approach in order to beat AI at the game of quantity.
Yeah, and the way I kind of see it is there's always going to be this AI stuff. I'm already building research agents to curate against AI fluff,
Mhm.
right? It's already happening. So AI in itself is being used to distinguish between signal versus noise. So secondly, but the beauty of it is once you're in, you're in. So to give you an idea, within my AI community, groups are naturally organically creating. We're in. We have an every other Friday meetup group to focus on specific topics, right? Those are closed doors. Those are invite only. Only by referral. And those things have already been happening. If you look at automation from a leadership level, you want to establish cohorts, right? If I'm a C-level people, you kind of want to talk to people who are kind of like you're at your level or maybe up. And part of it is curating that information or or curating your content to that specific audience. And sometimes being rare or scarce is an advantage, right? And you need to kind of figure out what signals do you need to send to convey that level of expertise.
Tracking that, we're almost at time. Would you have a few extra minutes for a quick rapid fire round of
Yeah,
questions?
yeah, yeah, yes.
What is one tool you couldn't create content without?
Right now, it's between OpenHands and Claude Code. It's the opportunity to build agents. I'm able to clone myself and create different versions of myself for work and also my day-to-day stuff.
So Claude Code, and what was the second one?
OpenHands. OpenHands is like an open source version of Claude Code. There's certain perks available with it in the sense that they publish things a lot more openly.
Mhm.
They do benchmarking. They share the code. It's a lot more open. Claude right now is in the they're kind of like at the peak of the hype right now,
Mhm.
especially with what the news that's going on with the Pentagon, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. Um, to a point where in getting somebody from Anthropic is kind of like you need to be NVIDIA level connections to to get their eyeballs, to get experts from them. So OpenHands Dev is open source community where I've been collaborating, working with them on the side.
Love it. And I know that you've written a book titled AI Data Privacy and Protection, The Complete Guide to Ethical AI, Data Privacy and Security. In that book, what was your favorite chapter and why?
Yeah, this is a tricky question. So short answer is the quantum computing part because number one, no clue at all. It was completely in research and investigation. It's the opportunity to find experts and interview them. So I actually got to interview people completely above my knowledge level and capability. And it was very eye opening on there were a lot of things I've learned that I could not share. And because quantum computer is like 150 to 100 to $300 million a pop. And having access to that, the US government actually tracks the people who are actually using it. That's how crazy it is. And to have that compute power to work on real things is kind of very, very interesting. And when you think about it, those are the kind of things that hey, need to figure out climate change or figure out trends or crazy things like billions of parameters, what if scenarios. So those
Mhm.
are very interesting things. The second part of the book that I like is the glossary and the index, because I created a personal snarky version of all the things there. Of course, my publisher killed it because what are the tools I like, and how we redefine stuff. So a lot of fun just curating stuff with those areas.
The supercomputing part sounds super fun.
Yeah, yeah. And the people I talk to, man, it's crazy. They're think of Minority Report dashboards, virtual reality capability, with quantum computers. Because when you think about it, you can literally create something like that, with that much compute. So,
What is the best piece of advice that you've received around creating content?
number one, be yourself. So the thing that I realized is you need to have a very strong opinion of something. Otherwise, don't do it. It's like AI slop. So part of it is forcing myself to put myself out there, have a very opinionated view of a certain topic, and not be afraid to be wrong. and to have that intellectual honesty and capacity to take on hits from other people that might know better. And what I've found is that by putting myself out there and just being transparent on what I know and not know, or what I curated and whatnot, allowed me to be happy. Right? There's a lot of, oh shit, I put X there. Maybe this other, smart guy say you're stupid, blah blah blah, and all that stuff. Living through that window or like lens is it's very freeing just to realize I don't care. Like, I'm just being honest and I'm just learning and so posting something that's out there and somebody compliments or somebody uses um is very, very gratifying. The way I kind of look at my work is that if I'm adding to the body of knowledge and I'm helping other people become better, fundamentally, it creates a lot of joy. It doesn't give me a lot of pressure, and frankly, like what I said, like I started posting stuff and open sourcing it. Now I connected with another person who's teaching, and now he's like, dude, why don't you talk to my class about X? Stuff like that. And I was like, holy crap, this is amazing because um, the stuff I put out there is not really bullshit right now, and there's enough content. Um, Basically, what I'm trying to say is very gratifying to have somebody validate things and say, hey, I'm seeing the same problems, and not really worry about what other people think too much, and just being being mentally or intellectually honest. And to be transparent, I'm guilty of AI slop. I played around situations wherein I posted a shit ton of other things that I pretended, and I realized working with my colleagues and all of that stuff, that's the easy way to lose respect,
Mm.
is to post a shit ton of like things that smart but it's fluff.
Mhm.
By being directly transparent and honest about stuff and just kind of curating stuff in a way that's really helpful, I think is very liberating.
Yeah, I think so as well. And actually, it makes me think of one specific person that I know, great guy, and he posts on Instagram all the time. But it's not even the stuff that he posts, it's the approach that he takes towards content, where he uses his social media as essentially like an outlet for all his thoughts, like completely unfiltered. And a lot of it just comes off as rambling, where it's like 30 stories straight of just his like unfiltered thoughts, talking for like a minute straight, and it's just nonstop. Number one, people have very short attention spans. Like people's brains are fried when it comes to being able to hook them.
Yep.
That's number one. Number two, it's like when you take forever to get to the point, it's just it destroys your credibility,
Yep.
because now it's like whenever I come by his story, it's nothing that I have against him, nothing at all. It's just that I know there's going to be 50 levels of fluff before I get to anything real with his story.
Yep.
So my brain just like it skips it. It ignores it.
Yep. Yep. I'm with you. And the way I'm gonna learn, let me end with this. I wanna give people like something solid. I learned it somewhere, but this is the mental model I play. Number one, there are three modes. There's leading, there's the discovering, and there's this thing called curating. Leading is the day-to-day crazy struggles and things that I do from my own personal learning journey or expertise. So I'm a principal AI solution architect. I do automation stuff. By posting things on the challenges or the day in a life, or your typical YouTube video, here's my day in the life, blah blah blah. It's not sexy, blah blah blah, or here's kind of like the challenge. That's the leading component. So by being very transparent and honest about it is really helpful. It helps a lot of people. So And talking about my junk and the things I've learned, there's nothing that you can say is wrong about it because it's my freaking experience, right? So leading is one. The second one is discovering. I'm connecting with a lot of people, C-level people now, and just discovering on their behalf and trying to answer their questions. I free myself from the burden of like, oh shit, I know everything. You know what I mean? And researching and talking about it plainly and say, this is what CTO, CFO just told me. And talking about it very directly is it's another form of content creation. So I'm discovering things on behalf of the audience or the people I want. Last but not the least is reporting or curating. So for example, it's the ability to use AI to harvest a ton of information. So most recent one I've learned is I'm doing research on prompt engineering and all that stuff. One thing I've learned is apparently a lot of people have reverse engineered system prompts for Claude and Manus and all that other stuff, and they shared it publicly. And so now I'm reporting and or curating and say, here's what I've seen, and here's the patterns I'm seeing. Here's the best practices. Here's what supposedly Anthropic is doing, how they're doing their stuff. Or Warren Buffett, if I'm gonna curate knowledge on his expertise, here's kind of like 50 annual reports that he did, right? And here's the common things. You can use AI for that. And the insights or patterns that you see, you can share. It's gold. So what I try to do now is operate in those three modes and try to generate content on those levels. And it makes things a lot richer. And it takes me out from what I call imposter syndrome too much, and just kind of like publish out stuff there. And secondly, one thing I've learned is um, what now that everything's automated, where people post, two times, three times a day, people now turn off those things because it's too noisy.
Mhm.
So the randomness of stuff actually is actually more important now because everything is flooded.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
To
So
to be like a pattern interrupt, you need to change up your approach quite a bit and be more random and chaotic as opposed to the same thing every time.
yeah, and to be honest, like I try to post to two time frames. One is 7 a.m. Central to target US speakers, then one is 5 p.m. to target my European speakers.
Mhm.
And but what I've learned, so I did an experiment to understand my stickiness and effectivity of posts. And one of the things I realized is that the randomness actually helps a lot, and because it creates a lot more um, that spontaneity and honesty. It's just taking pictures or sharing something, right? Actually creates a lot more interest because it's real. It's me, right? It's not automated. And so there's a balance on, hey, this is the content you can automate. Because I think automation is still there. You still need to do some some information, but you can actually figure out, do it in a way that's very judicious so that you're able to penetrate certain areas more effectively. You know what I mean? And I think down the road, um, with AI, with agents, it's not SEO, search engine optimization, it's agent optimization. It's already happening right now. So one of the things I'm seeing with other things is they're creating. There's a lot of their agents that are being used right now for research to signal, use agents for signal what's on X, what's on Substack, what's on other stuff. And you still need to play that game in one sense, right? But to do it in being mindful that you're hitting agents, you're not hitting real people. you know, and it's par for the course. I think we all need to experiment and see what really works. Because I think there's already some backlash with too much information that having something that's more exclusive. Think about this: the top people who are doing Substack, they've started like creating a paywall, right? And people are willing to pay because guess what? They're looking for the expertise. So I think there's going to be an audience for there. The tricky thing is, why are you paying $5 a month? You know what I mean? Because brand pricing is your brand. So there's a fundamental question I have there is I have a Substack. I charge $5 a month. Is that is that the right audience that I'm hitting on? You know what I mean? So part of it is, if you're hitting on the C level and all that stuff, where are they sourcing their stuff from? Where are they generating content, curating or reading content? So that's, to be transparent, that's still something that I'm trying to figure out.
Mhm.
Because I guarantee you they're so inundated. They're not, there's Harvard Business Review, there's a ton of other things. But part of it is how do you break the wall and go up the game to reach those what I call revered echelons of learning and wisdom, whatever, right? To have your name affixed and have your thought leadership part of it. So that's going to be very interesting. And personally, I'm asking myself, do I really even care, right? Because right now I'm teaching us a class on coding agents, and they're all master's degree students from University of Texas Dallas, and I'm having a blast. Like I'm just sharing stuff with them. I'm creating the content or knowledge, blah blah blah,
Mhm.
and the feedback. They're using the stuff that I'm teaching them, and I'm happy as hell. And I'm like, it's way way more fun to talk to people who actually care than to please a CEO or CFO who's just gonna tell you you're an idiot because they want to appear smarter than you. You know what I mean? So part of it is the balance of, are you really gonna put your emotional investment for something like that most probably they don't care, to a bunch of students who actually are really really hungry and it's fun. So and I'm just sharing with you kind of like the not really conflict, the things I'm thinking about, and there's what makes me happy, what kind of content do I want to do. And ultimately what I've learned is you need to do it with an audience of one,
Mhm.
namely you, me, right? If you're miserable creating those things, I mean, then offshore it, give it to an agent, right? But if you're fundamentally happier, richer, more inspired when you wake up. I wake up sometimes 4 a.m., 5 a.m. with a freaking idea in my head. Then I'm just like, oh my God, I'm picking someone from Romania. And say, hey man, I have this thing, blah, blah, blah. Those are the things you want to live for, right? And those are the things that you feel like, oh my God, this is awesome. I'm building something and the other things. And let me end with this. So one of the most profound projects I've done is automate fax referrals for a health payer, one of the top tier. We went live in 15 weeks. Without sharing too much, you can look at my LinkedIn profile and whatnot. What really profoundly impacted me, and I'm still good friends with the people there, is that we were able to cut down the intake process of people going through emergency to less than 24 hours.
Mhm.
And that, my friend, would be that made my day. Even up to, the day I die, that's the stuff that I'm gonna remember and say, hey, I actually built something or I published something that really saved lives. And same thing with the content, right? If you're publishing something that profoundly impact someone, right? I mean, then it's worth it, right?
No, I love it, and it resonates with me a lot because we at BitLab do a lot of health tech and med tech stuff, and there needs to be that thing that keeps you going, and there's very little um, to me more inspiring than something that saves lives. So kudos to you
Yeah,
for
yeah, and
building that.
yeah, and just to let you know, my dad died of cancer. I have family members, friends who, are not here because of all these things, right?
Mhm.
So because of cancer or other challenges. And so it hits home. It becomes a more like a personal mission to kind of, it becomes like this virtuous circle wherein, oh my God, this is awesome, and you wake up every day feeling inspired, like to doing something interesting and life saving. And it kind of just changes the whole dynamics of the effing effort, trying to curate data, trying to curate stuff, trying. Then it doesn't become a chore. Then it becomes very missional and all that stuff. So that's the thing that I'm kind of, personally, I'm relearning and adapting things because once I see the people that I'm talking with and saying, I'm profoundly impacted by X, here's what you shared with me, and here's the content I've learned, all these things, then I'm more intentional, then I'm more like purposeful. And the
Mhm.
stuff that I eke out, the more that your voice comes out, then it doesn't become marketing ish. And the more effective that you're able to connect with people in a way that people share, you know um and if it becomes viral, thank God. If not, I'm sleeping like a happy kid doing my dance in my head because I did something amazing,
And
you
Mario,
know
if people want to find you, where can they find you?
right now on LinkedIn. I'm not as active in X, maybe in the future. Right now I'm intentionally just focusing on LinkedIn. The reason being is that I used to post on all different channels. I'm also doing Substack, but that's going to evolve. And just follow me on LinkedIn, Mario Lazo. I'm the only crazy guy there with a two finger, thumbs up. And if there's anything I can do to help or anything in any way, shape, or form, more than happy. The beauty of where I work is we hire people. I'm a part of the professional services for Evergreen, which is Insight Global. It's a staffing company, and so we're kind of like, I find it very missional to empower people to look for jobs and find meaningful careers as well. So hit me up anytime. I'm always tinkering with something.
Love it. Anything to add before we end it for the podcast?
No, just thank you for this opportunity. Profoundly grateful. And look forward to what you're doing, my friend. If there's anything I can help out, even promote, more than happy to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And would be curious to get your thoughts on ContentStash once we expand our list of beta users. We're going to be looking for people to try it out, and hopefully we can save you a bit of time on the whole repurposing bit and coming up with content from the existing pool of videos and posts that you
Yep.
have scattered across your socials.
Yeah. Let me give you one tip, man. Here's what I've learned. The most lucrative or the most critical pieces of content, like I said, it's in vertical, so healthcare, finance, manufacturing, blah blah blah. It's in the intersection of a vertical and a problem domain.
Mhm.
That's what I've learned. I had a project and we were talking about mining, knowledge mining, blah blah blah. And I've learned that that's the most lucrative area.
Mhm.
simply because those are highly specific domains that are, that require certain expertise, but more importantly, within the context of the vertical itself. So it's healthcare, let's say cybersecurity. Um, you know, as it's very different from finance,
Mhm.
or just to give you an idea. The From a gaming and knowledge perspective, I think I would even argue, if you can gamify knowledge in itself, and use the knowledge or information that you have to generate what I call to transition from natural language processing, because if you're using AI to process things from a natural language perspective, use it to become what I call natural language understanding.
Mhm.
So understanding requires intent, requires context, requires, what are the implications of that.
Mhm.
I think the world will be fundamentally a better place in trying to understand each other and being able to communicate more effectively at their level with the right tools and the right channel, in a way that I would argue, would lead to better marriages, better people. You know, there's a generational gap between, the older generation, the younger generation, all that stuff. If we're able to translate things to natural language understanding, I think things would have been things would have be fundamentally be amazing. We're all going to be better individual, better communities, better, husbands, or employees and whatnot. So hopefully. So sorry, I'm gonna do the altruistic angle.
No, absolutely. And I love that angle. And there's a lot of wisdom to what you said around the intersection of expensive problem with an expensive niche. Uh, and it makes me think about just strategy, not even content strategy, but strategy as a whole of where we should build. Because as we talked about, I think right before this podcast, there are so many problems and so many solutions and different little gold nuggets to chase after. The gold rush of AI is causing people to go crazy in terms of what it is that they want to build. And it's important to not just have a moat, but to find that intersection where you're going to be defensible and
Oh
it's going
yeah,
to
oh
be
yeah.
profitable.
Let me explain it in plain terms. So think about AI. LLM models, commodity. Why? DeepSeek just tapped everybody's moat, so to speak, right? And if you go online, look at DeepSeek, they're 1/10 of ChatGPT
Mhm.
in terms of compute cost. And guess what? Where everybody else, quote unquote, unofficial is going as we speak. So LLMs, commodity. Frameworks, tool sets, and workbench fundamentally are mostly open source. Why? Because nobody can keep up, right? Everybody's open sourcing it by design, because they need the developer community to rally around adoption, and all the leading ones are open source. Langchain, Langsmith, all that stuff. And I would even argue for LLMs, go to Hugging Face. There's roughly about 2 to 3 million models that's there,
Mhm.
right? Um, so if you're looking at AI and all that stuff, your tool set is open source. There's no defensible stuff. The main thing that I'm seeing right now is the subject matter expertise, domain knowledge. Why? Because guess what? They're all embedded within generations of people, and by design, it's tribal. Even with healthcare, think about healthcare. By design, it's per state, right? And we're not even unifying vision. dental, and like medical human health. They're all like separate.
Mhm.
And AI is the perfect vehicle, like if we're putting all those things, because guess what? Everybody has one body that has all three, you know? So just from that perspective alone, I mean, there's a ton of opportunities to break down those silos and have something that's more meaningful from a content perspective and actually change the game.
You've left me with a lot to think about. Um, let's call it here. And
Okay.
man, because you got my mind racing. I love it.
That's
Thank you
my
so
job,
much,
man.
man. Thank you so much for all this context.